I just think it's better if you don't come. It'll keep the peace. That's what my mom texted me. A single message. No call. No explanation. Just a cold dismissal, after everything I'd done. My name is Lena Carter. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever been erased from a story you helped write? 3 months earlier I drained my savings, $16,000, to stop the bank from foreclosing on my parents' house. Their mortgage had ballooned. My dad's hours got cut. And my mom, well, she'd rather light candles than check the account. They were 2 weeks from losing everything. I wired the money without question. No contracts. No IOUs. His love. But apparently my presence was too disruptive to my sister's birthday dinner. A dinner I helped fund by saving their roof. You know how Camille gets? Mom had written like her moods were hurricanes we were all supposed to evacuate for. And Camille? She didn't even have the courage to say it herself. They were hosting the dinner at a private venue. Family only. Everyone was invited. Cousins, in-laws, neighbors who once watched our dog. Everyone, except me. When I saw the group photo on Instagram, Camille in her glitter dress, champagne raised high, the caption, "Surrounded by those who truly matter," something in me cracked. I stared at the photo while standing in the kitchen of my tiny apartment. The same kitchen I hadn't restocked in weeks so I could wire them every cent I had. But no one cared. Not Mom. Not Dad. Not even my little brother who used to beg me to read him stories. They cut me out of the frame. So I did what I do best. I opened my laptop. I pulled up the family trust account. The one Grandpa left behind. The one they never expected me to manage after I got my CPA and moved to the city. I never told them I'd quietly been named co-signer when Grandpa passed. He trusted me. And unlike the rest of them, I read every page of that will. So I did one thing. I froze the entire trust. Every single dollar. Camille's designer furniture order? Declined. Mom's monthly spa membership? Cancelled. Dad's antique car restoration? Stopped cold. I didn't shout. I didn't argue. I let silence do the heavy lifting. Then I booked a dinner for one. At the most expensive rooftop spot in the city. And I toasted myself. To boundaries. To clarity. To walking away from people who only love you when they need something. By the time they realized what had happened, it was too late. But trust me, this was just the beginning. Because when you uninvite the wrong woman, you don't just lose her presence. You lose access. And the price for that was just starting to hit. The first call came from Dad. He didn't even ask how I was. No, how's work, Lena? No, sorry we left you out. Just a clipped, hey, did you touch something in the trust account? Camille says her decorator's payment bounced. I could hear the irritation behind his voice. Not concern, just inconvenience. I kept my voice calm. Yes, I froze it. Silence. You froze it. He sounded like I'd told him the sun wasn't coming up tomorrow. Yes, I repeated. Legally. I'm a co-signer. Grandpa made sure of that, remember? The will that nobody read. He huffed. That's not what this is for. This is for family. And what am I? I snapped. A loan officer with no seat at the table? He didn't answer. Because he knew. I'd become their emergency fund. Not a daughter. Not a sister. Just an ATM in heels. He tried to soften. Camille's birthday was just sensitive. You know how things are between you two. Sensitive, I echoed, letting the word rot in my mouth. After I saved your home? He went quiet again. But I wasn't done. I was uninvited to dinner, Dad. After giving up my emergency fund. My peace of mind. My chance at a down payment. Still nothing. So I gave him one final truth. If you want the trust back, you'll need all co-signers to agree. Me included. And right now, I don't agree to a thing. Then I hung up. An hour later, Camille called. Lena, seriously? You're ruining Mom's health with all this stress. She can't sleep. Neither can I. I have events coming up. Oh, you mean the same Mom who said I shouldn't come because you might be upset? I could feel her flinch through the line. Camille had always been the golden child. The polished one. The one who whined just right, cried on cue, and always got second chances. I was the fixer. The doer. The one they called in the shadows. I used to envy her. Now I pitted her. Because without me her glitter cracked fast. You want to guilt me for finally saying no? I asked her. After being used? Forgotten? Mocked behind my back while you sip wine and throw parties? He started crying. The performative kind. Heavy breathing. Long pauses. I just wanted my birthday to be peaceful. And you thought exiling your own sister was the path to peace? I hung up again. They underestimated me. All my life they trained me to stay quiet. To be the good girl. The giver. The fixer. But they forgot. Even good girls have a limit. And when you push her past it, she doesn't burn bridges. She floods entire cities. By Monday morning, the ripple effects had become waves. Camille's overpriced interior designer posted a rant on Facebook about wealthy clients suddenly going broke. My aunt, who ran a charity that relied on quarterly trust disbursements, called Mom in a panic. And Mom? She showed up at my office. Unannounced. In pearls, heels, and desperation. The receptionist looked like she'd seen a ghost when she poked her head into my office. Lena, there's a woman here. Says she's your mother. I didn't move for a moment. Just closed my laptop slowly, stood up and said, send her in. She walked in like she owned the place. But I was no longer 15 asking her for permission. Lena, she said, breath shaky. This is getting out of hand. You've made your point, okay? Now can we just unfreeze the account and talk about this like family? I stared at her. Talk? I asked. Like how we talked when you told me not to come to dinner. Or when you didn't even ask before accepting $16,000 from me, because you just assumed I'd give. Her face crumpled slightly. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said. But Camille needed that moment. You've always been the strong one. I knew you'd understand. My laugh was cold and dry. So I was punished for being dependable. She looked genuinely confused. That's what hit me most. Not the manipulation but the complete lack of awareness. You raised me to be invisible, I told her. To put others first. But you forgot. Eventually, invisible girls grow into women who stop asking to be seen. She sat across from me. Lena, I can't sleep knowing the trust is frozen. That money was supposed to help this family. And I'm family, I said. You don't get to invoke unity after excluding me. That's not how love works. That's not how I work. Her voice dropped. People are starting to ask questions. Your uncle is furious. Your aunt said you blindsided the board. I leaned forward. Good. Let them ask. Let them remember that I exist. Her hands trembled. Camille is embarrassed. People are talking about how you shut everything down. I smiled. That's the thing about being invisible for so long, Mom. When I finally move, everyone notices. He tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled back. Not in anger, but in power. I'll consider unfreezing the trust, I said softly. But only after I get a written apology. From all of you. And I want the $16,000 repaid in full. I want receipts. I want signatures. I want proof that I matter. Her face flushed. You can't be serious. I'm done begging to be taken seriously. She stood quiet and furious. But she didn't slam the door. Because she finally knew. I wasn't the daughter they could use and dismiss. I was the storm they taught to stay silent. Until I remembered how loud I could be. The apology never came. Instead, Camille posted a sunlit photo on Instagram, her in a white jumpsuit, sipping champagne beside a caption that read, "Some people get bitter, I get better." That was the moment I knew they'd rather burn bridges than build them. Fine. If they wanted fire, I'd give them wildfire. I called my attorney Janine and said 4 words, initiate the trust audit. She didn't even blink. It's about time. See, the trust wasn't just some emergency fund. It was a $2.5 million legacy pot that I quietly managed and protected for over a decade. Every quarterly report, every tax form, every investment decision, I had overseen with surgical precision. Now I wanted transparency. Not for myself, but for the court. Within 24 hours, Janine sent official audit notices to every beneficiary. Camille, my parents, my 2 uncles, my aunt, and even the family-run church that had quietly been siphoning annual donations. No one had seen the books in 10 years. They were about to. Camille tried calling first. Walked. Then Mom tried emailing. She used her old trick, guilt-laced subject lines like, "Just want to talk, sweetie." I didn't open a single one. By Thursday, my father showed up at my building's lobby with a printed statement of where every dollar went. It was a joke, handwritten, smudged, and missing $58,000 that had accidentally gone into a joint investment he'd made with Camille. I turned it over to Janine. Then I did one more thing. I reached out to Grandma, the one person in our family who saw through all of it. She lived modestly now ever since my grandfather passed. She'd given up control of the family assets years ago, convinced it was time for the younger generation to lead. When I told her everything, how they iced me out, drained my savings, and treated me like a bank she never got to thank, her eyes welled up. I knew they were selfish, she whispered, but I didn't know they were cruel. That night she asked to be reinstated as a co-trustee. 2 signatures later she was. And 2 days after that she called a full family meeting. At her house. Camille came in late as usual, wearing a designer scarf I recognized from Paris. My uncle followed, smug and irritated. My parents sat side by side like a united front. Then Grandma walked in holding a large manila envelope. She handed it to Camille first. Then one to my mother. Then to each of them. "What is this?" Camille scoffed. "Read it," Grandma said quietly. They opened the letters. And the screaming started. It was all there. Every transaction, every misused dollar, every misfiled form that violated trust rules. The audit report was damning. Camille's eyes bulged. My uncle turned red. My mother looked like someone had pulled the floor from under her. "You moved $64,000 into a gift fund for Camille's condo?" Grandma said. "That's theft under trust law." "Mom," my mother stammered, "we were going to repay it. You used Lena's money to do it." Silence. Then Grandma turned to me and said something I'll never forget. "You protected this family longer than we deserved. It's your turn now." That was the moment the old hierarchy crumbled. Because no matter how loud they'd been, they forgot who controlled the pen that writes the legacy. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. They were unraveling without my help. Camille, red-faced, sputtered about emotional damages and misunderstandings, while Mom tried to play the confused matriarch, suddenly unsure how $64,000 had just floated from the trust into Camille's new quartz countertop. But Grandma was still standing. And she had more. "These letters," she said, tapping the envelopes still clutched in their shaking hands, "are copies. Originals went to the family attorney and the trust court liaison. If even 1 cent of Lena's contribution was moved improperly, there will be consequences. Legal ones." Camille tried to toss the envelope aside, but Grandma stopped her cold with a single sentence. "You're not above the law, dear. Even if your Instagram thinks otherwise." I should have felt triumphant. I should have smirked even. But what I felt was release. Years of carrying this family's financial weight. The bailouts, the loans, the gentle lies to make them feel proud while I held everything together. It had been suffocating. And now, finally, I could breathe. So I wasn't done. Because even though the audit made things official, it didn't make them right. The next morning I opened my laptop and pulled up the one folder I'd never intended to use. I'd labeled it simply, receipts. Screenshots of every bank transfer, every text message, every time Camille had boasted about Dad covering it, or we can just dip into Lena's trust. Audio files from meetings where they assumed I wasn't recording. My favorite clip? My father's exact words. "She's not even using it, what's the harm?" That clip alone would have burned them. But I didn't go public. No. I went private, strategically. I sent one email. To the family's longtime CPA, Mr. Darnell. A man so old school he still faxed forms and used paper clips. But he was honest. And meticulous. He called me an hour later. "Lena, this is criminal. They could face charges." "I'm not pressing them," I said flatly. "But I want them removed. Permanently. From the trust. From my accounts. From decision-making. All of it." "Done," he said. "And Lena?" "Yes. I always thought you were the quiet one. Turns out you were just waiting." "Waiting, yes. Watching, absolutely. But now I was writing the rules." Later that week, Camille posted another smug selfie, captioned, "Some of us are born lucky." So I posted my own. No filters, no fluff. Just a photo of me signing legal documents with Grandma by my side. Caption, "Some of us are just prepared." That post got quiet likes from some family friends. The kind who knew exactly what was happening. But what truly sent the message? The silence. No calls. No messages. Not even from Mom. I wasn't mad anymore. I wasn't hurt. I was free. And when freedom comes dressed in truth and wrapped in boundaries, it doesn't scream. It just walks away, while the liars stand stunned in the ruins they built themselves. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought removing them from the trust and drawing my line in the sand would be enough. But entitled people don't just back down. They fester. They stew. And then, they come knocking. 2 weeks passed before the first knock came, literally. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was sipping coffee on the porch, laptop on my lap, deep into a quarterly review for my startup. The knock was soft but persistent. I opened the door. It was my father. Big, small. The man who once lectured me about family obligations was standing there like he'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks. I saw it instantly, the tension in his shoulders, the tremble in his jaw. I said nothing. Just stared. "Lena," he finally said. "Can we talk?" I stepped aside without a word. He sat on the couch like a guest, not like someone who used to stomp through my life as if it belonged to him. "I didn't know Camille moved the money like that," he said, his voice low. "She told me it was an investment. Something about family equity." "She lied," I replied. "But you believed her. And you let her steal from your grandson." He winced. "I was wrong," he said. "We were wrong. I could have let the silence hang. But I didn't." "You weren't just wrong," I said, standing firm. "You were complicit. You all let that boy drain everything he had. And when he asked where the money went, you said nothing. Do you know how many nights he cried himself to sleep, thinking he failed this family?" He looked away. Maybe for the first time in his life. "I came to make it right," he said. I laughed. "Make it right? There's no refund button for betrayal." "No," he said slowly. "But there's restitution." He reached into his coat pocket and handed me a check. $64,000. I stared at it. Not because I planned to take it, but because I knew what it represented. Guilt. Desperation. Fear. But also, maybe the first step toward accountability. I didn't cash it. Instead, I took a picture of it and sent it to a private family group chat. The one they all used to exclude me from decisions, birthdays, accidental get-togethers. My message was short. Restitution is not forgiveness. But it's a start. My son's college is already covered by me. This check is going to a scholarship fund for kids like him. Ones who give everything, and still get betrayed. Then I blocked the entire group. All of them. I wasn't interested in their reactions. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about healing. But healing doesn't mean welcoming toxicity back with open arms. It means building a gate so strong that no lie, no manipulation, no sweet-talking apology can slither back in. And that check. It became the seed for something far bigger than their small-minded greed could ever imagine. It became a promise. That our legacy would not be forged in betrayal, but in justice. And just like that, the girl they called too soft became the storm they never saw coming. 2 weeks later, my son came home from school and found me sitting at the kitchen island, surrounded by brochures, grant proposals, and a nameplate that read, "The Miles Foundation, for those who gave everything." "Mom," he said, eyes wide. "What is all this?" I looked up and smiled. "This is your future," I said. "And a few others too." He sat down beside me, flipping through the documents slowly. His fingers paused on a scholarship application form bearing his name at the top, not as the applicant but as the founder's inspiration. "I don't get it," he whispered. "You gave $16,000 to help people who wouldn't lift a finger for you," I said, my voice catching a little. "You believed in them. They failed you. But I won't let the lesson be that kindness is weakness. This foundation is proof that your generosity meant something. Even if it didn't mean anything to them." He said nothing for a moment, then leaned over and hugged me tight. "I thought I lost everything," he whispered. "But this feels like the start of something real." It was. The foundation launch was quiet at first. Just me, Miles, a few close friends, and a local reporter who asked if she could run a feature on the woman who turned betrayal into a mission. I agreed under one condition: she couldn't use my family's names. I wasn't giving them the spotlight. I'd already taken their power. The story went viral anyway. And then came the calls. From mothers. From first-gen students. From people who'd been in our shoes. Discarded, used, emotionally bled dry by people who claimed to love them. The floodgates opened. And then one day, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a torn photo. An old one. Easter dinner from a few years back. My brother's smug face on one side, Camille's manicured hand resting on my mother's shoulder. I was at the far end, half out of frame. On the back was a note in my mother's handwriting. It said, "We see now. Too late maybe. But we see. You didn't play CO. You are one. We just didn't know how to love a woman like that." I folded it neatly. Slid it into the back of the foundation ledger. Not as a keepsake. As a receipt. Because that's what it was. A silent invoice for every apology they owed but would never say out loud. And I didn't need their redemption anymore. My life wasn't about proving anything to them. It was about building something they could never take from me again. Because when a woman rises, truly rises, after being discarded, overlooked, laughed at, she becomes an earthquake. And even the strongest walls of silence and shame begin to crack. Tomorrow was the first official board meeting for the Miles Foundation. And guess who I'd invited to chair it? My son. The boy they dismissed as naive. The boy who once wept in his room thinking love had limits. He was about to sit at the head of a table they'd never be allowed near again. That's the thing about storms. They always clear a path. And ours had just begun. The boardroom was quiet when he walked in. Miles, in his navy blazer and gray slacks, carried the calm of someone who had already weathered the worst kind of storm, betrayal by blood. He sat at the head of the table, glanced around at the mentors, donors, and young applicants we'd flown in from 5 cities. The plaque behind him read, "Founded in honor of Miles Carter, because kindness should never be punished." He cleared his throat and smiled. "My name is Miles," he said. "And I used to believe giving everything made me weak. But now I know, it made me worthy." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Outside those walls, though, my family was unraveling. Camille's career had turned to smoke when her startup ran out of investor runway. Turned out no one wanted to back a CEO with no vision and a scandal attached to her name, one that quietly circulated after the foundation story aired. The internet did what it always does. Dug deeper. Found the donation record. Found the lie. As for my brother, his new employer let him go 2 days after realizing he was the sibling in that viral story. No one wants someone who betrays their own family handling sensitive data. A matter of integrity, the HR rep told him. And my mother? Well, she called. Twice. Left voicemails both times. Her voice was calm but cracked around the edges. "We didn't understand what you were doing, honey. We didn't understand you." I never called her back. I didn't need to. 2 days after the board meeting, a woman in a gray coat delivered something to their door, in person. A letter hand-sealed. No lawyer. No dramatics. Just my words. Inside it said, "You taught us how to sacrifice. But we learned to give without bleeding. You taught us family. But we built one stronger. You taught us shame. But we answered with purpose." Miles got into Stanford. Full ride. The foundation has $184,000 in its fund already. You are not part of this chapter. But we thank you for the prologue. Goodbye. Lana. They screamed according to our neighbor. She said she saw Camille fling the letter into the yard, tear running mascara down her cheeks, my mother clutching the side of the door like she couldn't breathe. I didn't rejoice in it. I just lit a candle. And sat with the silence that used to ache so loud. Because sometimes revenge isn't about fire or fury. Sometimes it's about becoming so whole they can't recognize the piece they tried to break. My name is Lana Carter. And from wherever you're watching this, I hope you choose to rise too.